Welcome everyone, welcome everyone, welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video, wherever you are, whatever you may be doing. Thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. If you watched yesterday's video, which was a quick recap of the SWA show from Saturday night when Teddy Long came to see us, then you know today's video is going to be my weekly Braves review. As much as I hate to do it, as much as I don't want to do it, I've done one every week this year since baseball has started, and I'll continue to do them even though the Braves right now have me extremely disappointed. But before I get into that, let me go ahead and say that tomorrow's video is for all you college football fans out there. We're going to be discussing head coaches that, in my opinion, are on the hot seat for one reason or another heading into the 2021 season. That'll be tomorrow. And then coming up on Wednesday, for all you wrestling fans out there, Wednesday is going to be top 10 worst all-time gimmicks. So if you've been a long-time wrestling fan, you've watched all the promotions, I'm sure you've seen some bad gimmicks over the years. So if you have any thoughts on that, please feel free to drop it in the comments section as well. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into my weekly Braves report. I said last week I thought the Braves would go 4-2 because they had 3 with the Phillies and 3 with the Marlins, and the Phillies were struggling, and the Marlins are they're just the Marlins, nothing impressive, just a mediocre baseball team. But instead of going 4-2, the Braves went 2-4. So they did the exact opposite of what I thought they would do, and I thought I was going to be right because they won on Tuesday, but then they lost Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and then finally got back on the winning side yesterday by beating the Marlins in the third and final game of that series. The Braves are now 2-5 this year against the Marlins, which is absolutely pitiful. But they played a 4-game series earlier this year, and the Braves won 1. And in this 3-game series, the Braves won 1. So they're 2-5 so far this year against the Marlins. And ironically enough, the Braves' worst starting pitcher is Drew Smyly. But both games the Braves won last week were started by Drew Smyly. Now, Tuesday, he only went 4 1/3 innings, but the bullpen actually had a good night, and the bats were good, and they came back and won the game. I believe it was 9-5, I think. But yesterday, he went 5 innings and gave up 2 runs, and for Drew Smyly, that's a good start. But the Braves right now, as far as the rotation goes, they have 4 number 3 starters, and then you have Drew Smyly. But now they have sent Touki Toussaint out on a rehab assignment with Rome. But Touki Toussaint's just like Drew Smyly. He's just wildly inconsistent, so I don't really know that having Touki Toussaint is going to do you any better than having Drew Smyly. But with Soroka being out and Yanoa being out, they really don't have an option except for Smyly unless they decide to give it to Toussaint. But it's almost like the whole entire Braves team just said, hey, let's just suck this year. Because if you look up and down the team, all over, Freddie Freeman is a career .290 hitter, and he's hitting .238 on June 14th. Now, he's still got 15 home runs and around 35 RBIs, so he'll still wind up with 30-plus homers and probably 80-plus RBIs, but .238 is terrible. And Dansby Swanson is like a career .252 hitter, which ain't great, but it's decent. And this year, he's hitting like .235. The best hitter right now is Austin Riley. Let's just hope he keeps it up. He hit his 12th home run of the season yesterday, but it's not just along the starting lineup. You look at the rotation. Ian Anderson was dominant last year, and this year he's just average at best. Max Fried was dominant last year, and this year he's just average at best. Charlie Morton had a great year with Tampa Bay last year, and this year his ERA is 4.5, which is nothing to write home about. And then I know the Braves let Mark Melancon go, and they did that because of the fact he's 36 years old, so they thought he was on the downward spiral of his career, and he wanted more money than they wanted to give him because they're trying to save money because we know they practically stole Acuna and Albies with the contracts that they got. But as good as those two players are, if you're going to keep them long term, you're going to have to give them not a max contract, but a pretty good sized contract next go around. So I know they're trying to save money for those two players. And I did like Melanson. He leads Major League Baseball right now in saves. He's been great with the San Diego Padres. But I understood the move because the bullpen last year was a strength all year long. And Will Smith is now the closer. And he had a great career with the Astros and did pretty good last year with the Braves. I mean, not great, but good. This year, he's only blown one save, which came Wednesday when the Braves were up 1-0. And he got 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth and then gave up a 2-out, 2-run walk-off homer, which the Braves should never expect to win by scoring 1 run. But it was Will Smith's first blown save of the year, but his ERA is still a little above 4.5, which is terrible. But most of his troubles have came when he's pitched in a non-save situation. Until last Wednesday, he's did a pretty good job when it's a save situation, but still, for a closer, to have an ERA of around 4.5 in the middle of June is not good. And A.J. Minter's ERA last year was below 1, and this year he's been average at best. Sean Newcomb was good last year, and he's been average at best. He's averaging almost a walk per inning, which is atrocious coming out of the bullpen, which tells you why he's not getting a shot to start right now. That's way too many walks. And then Tyler Matzik surprised everybody at how good he was last year, and he's been average at best. Josh Tomlin did a pretty good job last year as the long reliever, and he's been average this year at best. They just, for whatever reason, the lineup's been inconsistent, the rotation's been inconsistent, the bullpen's been inconsistent. The only reliever right now that you can rely on is Luke Jackson, whose ERA is like 1.1, which is incredible. But he's not a setup man. He's not a closer. So Luke Jackson being good is great, and it's good for him, but it doesn't help the team whatsoever because he's a long reliever. So you're not going to see Luke Jackson in the 8th, and you're not going to see Luke Jackson in the 9th unless the game is a blowout one way or the other. That's it. So they're going to have to find some consistency out of the bullpen. They finally brought back Shane Green. He finally made his debut, and then his first night out, he gave up, I think, 4 runs. But now his last 2 outings, he's been pretty good. Chris Martin was great last year, and he's been average. So the Braves' strength last year was their bullpen, and they brought back the same guys with the exception of Mark Melanson, and they've been terrible. So the whole entire team right now is struggling. So if you're the Braves, what do you do? Because there's not one thing you can fix. Because when your rotation is struggling, your defense is struggling, your bullpen is struggling, you can't really focus on fixing one thing because there's so many other things that need to be fixed as well. They started the season out playing good defense. They only made I think 4 errors through the first 25 or 30 games. But now, ever since then, they've pretty much made about 1 error, sometimes 3 or 4 errors in every single game. So even the defense, which started out good, has struggled as of late. So I really don't know what the answers can be. I do know they're going to have to find somebody to play left field because I don't think you'll ever see Marcell Ozuna in a Braves uniform again. I could be wrong, and if I am wrong, I'll come on here and say that I was wrong, but I'll be shocked. I'll be stunned. I'll be flabbergasted if you ever see Marcell Ozuna in a Braves uniform again. And we know that Inciarte is not the answer. I mean, I could strike out Ender Inciarte. Heredia is not the answer. Almonte is not the answer. Adrianza is not the answer. So they're going to have to find somebody to play left field. If they don't think Drew Waters is ready yet, I say go ahead and give him a shot. I mean, even if he's not ready yet, he's not going to be any worse than Inciarte. He's not going to be any worse than Almonte. And he can't be any worse than Pache was before he got hurt. He was only hitting 105. But if you don't think Drew Waters is ready, you're going to have to make a long-term trade. They're not going to be able to go out and trade for a left fielder for the rest of the year because then you're pretty much banking on Ozuna being back next year, and I don't think he will be. And if he's not, and I'm right, then you make a trade for a left fielder for the rest of the year, then guess what? Next year, you're back in the same predicament. You have no left fielder. So unless they think Drew Waters is ready, or going to be ready at the start of next year, they're going to have to make a trade and get a left fielder for at least a 2-year contract. I understand they don't want to rush Drew Waters. I understand that completely. They rushed Pache, and he was awful. So they don't want to make the same mistake again, and I totally get that. But if you think Drew Waters is going to be ready next year, then making a trade for the rest of the year is fine. But if you don't think he's going to be ready next year, then you need at least a 2-year contract from a left fielder somewhere, because what they got now just ain't cutting it. I'm still hoping that they move Freddie Freeman back down to the 3-hole and move Austin Riley down to 5th or 6th, because the Braves' only 3 run producers, consistent run producers, are Acuna and Freeman and Riley, and we know Acuna bats leadoff. So if nobody at the bottom of the lineup gets on base, then Acuna, all he can do is give you solo homers, and that does you no good. You don't need solo homers. You need consistent hitting, which is what the Braves don't have. But right now, when you've got Acuna batting leadoff, and you've got Freeman hitting second, and you've got Riley batting 4th, if at least 2 of those guys don't get on base every go-around, you're in trouble. Because after Riley, you have either Adrianza or Almonte, you have Swanson, you have Contreras, who is okay sometimes, and then you have Inciarte or Heredia. So after Riley, it's pretty much a minor league lineup. So they need to try to put Freeman 3rd and put Riley 5th or 6th and hope that somebody somewhere else can get it going and keep the lineup moving. Because with Freeman 2nd and Riley 4th, they're in trouble. They really, honestly, truly don't have a cleanup hitter. I think Austin Riley in the future could be a cleanup hitter, but he's not ready right now to be a cleanup hitter. He still strikes out way too much. He's hitting 300 right now, which is great. If he stays right there, then he can be a cleanup hitter in the future, but I don't think he's ready right now to be a cleanup hitter. And Albies is a good hitter, but he's not a cleanup hitter, but he's probably your best option right now. Freeman is made for the 3-hole, which is where he was for his almost entire career until they got Ozuna last year. They put Freeman in the 2-hole, which I understood, and it worked last year. But this year, you don't have Ozuna and you don't have d'Arnaud. So you really, truly don't have a 2-hitter, and you really, truly don't have a cleanup hitter. But somebody has to do it. But I think if they put Freeman in his old natural habitat, which is the 3-hole, and then put Riley 5th or 6th, I do think it'll help the lineup, because right now their lineup is just inconsistent as they come. They played the Marlins, who just have average pitching, and they scored, I think, 2 runs in the first 3 innings on Friday, and then didn't score the rest of the game, and then on Saturday didn't score until the 8th inning. So you had a team that went almost 18 innings without scoring a run, which is pitiful. Then they finally came back and scored 4 yesterday, and like I said, Austin Riley did have a home run yesterday. It was his 12th home run of the season. But they won. I'm glad they won, but they've got to find something and find some quick fixes. But I did say when the year started that I picked the Braves to win the division. I'm going to stick with it. I mean, they were 1 win away from the World Series last year, and they brought back virtually the same team, which is why I said they would win the division. I mean, I'm a realist. There's been years where I knew going into the season that the Braves were going to suck, and I just had to face that fact. But this year, when you were so good last year and you brought back the same team, you expect to be good again, but it just has not worked out. I do think Brian Snitker could change it up a little bit. There's been too many times I've seen A.J. Minter go out there and give up 3 runs and not get anybody out, and then the next day he's back on the mound. When somebody's that wild, you shouldn't be giving them chance after chance after chance. He's done it with Minter, and he's done it with Newcomb over and over and over and over again. And then in the lineup, even though they're not scoring runs, it looks like he is satisfied with Freeman hitting second and Riley batting cleanup. But if what you're doing is not working, you've got to try something different, and he's not. So I do think there's a few things that Brian Snitker could change to at least show that he's trying. Rotation-wise, I really don't know what they can do. because they haven't even mentioned making a trade. So unless they make a trade, they're stuck with the 5 they've got unless they decide to put Touki Toussaint in Drew Smiley's spot. But to me, they're the same pitcher. They're going to give you one good start and 3 or 4 bad starts. So to me, there's no difference. They've also tried Bryce Wilson. They've tried Kyle Wright. They're all the same pitcher. But with Soroka being out and Yanoa being out, there really ain't a whole lot you can do with the rotation. But the bullpen, you could shake things up. And the lineup, you could shake things up. And he looks like he's just satisfied with what they've got. So I do think Brian Snitker could change up a few things, but he's not doing that. But for the most part, there really ain't a whole lot you can do when your lineup ain't hitting, your rotation ain't being consistent, your bullpen ain't being consistent, your defense ain't being consistent. So when everything you've got on both sides of the ball is not doing their job, I really don't know what you can do. But you can't panic because panicking makes it worse. Not only that, but baseball's a long season. But if the Braves are going to make a trade for a left fielder, they're going to have to do it now because they're 3 games below 500, 5 games behind the Mets. They're in 3rd place right now because the Phillies are in 2nd place, 3 games behind the Mets. The Phillies lost to the Braves Tuesday, then come back and won Wednesday and Thursday, and then swept the Yankees. So they're playing pretty good ball right now after struggling for a while. So the Braves are 5 games back, but they're in 3rd place. But when you're 3 games below 500 on June 14th, if your plan is to make a trade on July 30th or 31st, by the time you get there, if you're 10 games under 500, there's no point making a trade because it's too late. So if they're going to make a trade, they need to go ahead and do it and not wait until the trade deadline. Now, if they come out and have a 10-game winning streak, then everything's fine. But the way they've played this year, I don't think that's bound to happen anytime soon. Hopefully, I'm wrong. But we know the trade deadline is July 31st. But the way the Braves have played recently and lately, you don't want to wait that long, especially with the Mets playing so good, now the Phillies playing so good. And the National League West is so stacked with the Dodgers, Giants, and Padres that the only way you're going to make the playoffs is to win the division. You're not winning a wild card. It's not happening. And the Mets, the Mets always have a team, but most years, 3 or 4 of their starting lineup get hurt, and then their bullpen guys will get hurt, and then their rotation gets hurt, and they never can stay healthy. This year, for the most part, with the exception of about 3 weeks ago when the Braves played them, and they had about half their team on the injured list, for the most part, they've stayed pretty healthy this year as far as the major players. Now, some of the bench players are hurt, but, they're not really going to factor into your season. But for the most part, their starting lineup this year and their rotation have stayed pretty healthy, which is why they still lead the division here in the middle of June. DeGrom did leave his last start with the blister, but he says it's not a big deal, nothing to worry about. But the Braves are off tonight, and then they play a short 2-game series with the Red Sox, and then the Cardinals come into town for a 4-game set starting on Thursday night. The Cardinals led the National League Central for a while, and right now they're struggling just like the Braves. They're hovering right around 500. Their rotation is just like the Braves. It's wildly inconsistent. So maybe the Cardinals coming to town is just what the doctor ordered for the Braves. All we can do is hope and keep hoping that they eventually find a way to turn things around. If they could sweep one team and then win a 2-game series against somebody else and just get a little momentum, I think they'll be fine. But they can't do that. They'll win 2 or 3, then they'll lose 2 or 3. They'll win a series and they'll lose a series. So until they actually have about a 5 or 6 game winning streak to prove to them that they can win, right now they've convinced themselves that they're a 500 club. And Yogi Berra always said, Major League Baseball is so long that 99% of the time you're guaranteed to win 50 games and you're guaranteed to lose 50 games. It's the other 62 games where you figure out what kind of team you are. Well, right now, it's looking like in the other 62 games that the Braves are going to win 31 and lose 31. And you're not going to the playoffs, and you're not going to win the division by doing that. I mean, they beat the Dodgers Saturday and Sunday, had Monday off, came back, beat the Phillies on Tuesday. It was the first 3-game win streak of the year, and I thought, here we go, finally seeing what the Braves got. And then what they do, they come back and lost 4 in a row. So winning 3 in a row does you no good when you turn around and lose the next 4. Now, if you can win 3 and lose 1 and win 3 and lose 1, then you slowly start getting some momentum. But it's the 6 games played this week. Like I said, they're off tonight. It'll be the Red Sox Tuesday and Wednesday and the Cardinals Thursday through Sunday. Hopefully, they'll win 1 from the Red Sox. They just played the Red Sox for a 2-game series a couple of weeks back. They won 1 and lost 1, and that was the series where Ozuna got hurt when he jammed his 2 middle fingers sliding into third base. The Red Sox have an outstanding lineup, so maybe the Braves will get lucky and win 1 and then take 3 out of 4 from the Cardinals. I don't see a sweep, but I'll take 3 out of 4 all year long. Hopefully the Braves get it going this week, because right now it's the middle of June. They've got 30 wins and 33 losses, which is terrible. And they're in third place in the division, like I said earlier. 5 games behind the Mets and 2 games behind the Phillies for second place. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day. How do you find Will Smith in the snow? You look for fresh prints. And that wraps it up for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them.